Welcome to ABA Generalized, the podcast where we will bring a positive view to the world of applied behavior analysis.
We are your hosts, Erica, G, and Ann, here to share inspiring stories, practical tips, and share some of the latest research to help you thrive in your ABA practice.
Whether you're a seasoned professional, a student, or just curious about ABA, our goal is to spread positivity, foster a supportive community, and empower you to make a meaningful difference.
Every Monday, we'll dive into topics ranging from success stories to self-care strategies and professional growth.
Plus, we'll be featuring interviews with leading experts and real-life heroes in the field who are making an impact with their positive approach.
Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at ABA Generalized the pod and send us your thoughts, questions, or success stories to aba.generalized.podcast@gmail.com. Also, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe.
So grab your headphones, get comfortable, and join us for today's episode of ABA Generalized.
All right. Well, come back. Welcome back. Today, we're going to continue our conversation through the verbal operants.
Maybe Anne has some issues with her own verbal operants.
Yes. We're going to keep going through the VB map. So we're going to talk about echoics today. Echo, echo, echo.
Echo.
And like Finding Nemo when Dory's going, echo, echo.
I can't with you right now. I literally cannot. Like, you're too much.
Erica, what's an echoic?
All right. So an echoic is anything that is literally echoing. So for example, if I were to say, and say, there we go. That's an echoic. Woo, you did it. Nice job saying, So obviously specific, all that fun stuff and whatever. Anyways, so Anne and I were also just talking about how, like, at her company that she worked at before working in a school, they really heavily focused on echoics. And even when we worked at the same company together in Pennsylvania, we did echoics, but what I had learned there is that you use it in very specific, I forgot to start a timer. Oops. You use it as, like, not just how we just did it, where you're saying, you're on a swing. With maybe the child's on a swing. You're pushing them and you say, wee, wee. You're doing it in their naturalistic ways. So then they're more likely to say something like that, right? So it's really important to help with building that language. And that's something else that we had previously talked about as well. So my lovely VB Map guidebook, echoics. So it talks about how repeating words, phrases, and other auditory verbal stimuli is common for all speakers in day-to-day disclosure. Technically speaking, I can't even read. Technically speaking, the echoic is controlled by a verbal SD that matches, so it has a point-to-point correspondence with the response. Echoic behavior produces generalized conditioned reinforcement, such as praise and attention. The ability to echo the phonemes and words of others is essential for language development. A parent might say, "That's a bear. Can you say bear?" If the child can respond bear, and then the parent says, "Right." They should say, "Right, that is a bear," so they know what they're saying, right? Anyways, eventually, the child learns to tact, right? Like what we talked about in the last episode, tacting a bear without an echoic prompt. So yes, echoics can be prompts. And yes, echoics can also be things that are teaching a child how to respond in their natural environment. You get scared. You're on a swing. Wee. See a bee. Bee, right? Mama, dada, papa, all those things, like small little phenome syntaxes are going to be what you start with your echoics.
We got real technical with those terms.
Sorry. I don't even know what I said.
Phonemes and syntaxes.
Everyone should know what those are. They're like little starter points to your words and stuff, and little portions, phonemes and syntaxes. When I
And
say
that's
parents,
where
they
the echoic
understand.
starts.
What?
And that's where the echoic starts. Like if you're working with, if your client has very little speaking language, right? You're likely, if your client, here's another thing that I just thought, if you have a client who uses an AAC device or PECS and cannot form speaking words, would you work on echoics? No. No.
If it's
You
like
can,
the little syntaxes and they're able to make little verbal utterances, maybe.
I mean, yeah, it depends on their level, but is that going to be useful to them? No. No. Because what the echoics do, you're right, like they break down like little sounds. If you look at, if you have a VB map, look handy while you're listening to this. You can look at the ESSA in the back. Oh yeah, you're already there.
Which is
And
what
they
I
have
was
a
scrolling
list.
through on my side. If
Yeah,
you
so there's a list of like, first it's like one syllable words. They're not even some that like moo, ba, my, boo, oh. So just teaching, I don't know. I feel like an SLP would be good to explain this because I feel like they would know a whole lot more about what this does for you.
Agreed. So like the way that it breaks down, so the ESSA is the Early Echoic Skills Assessment. Actually a BCBA, and she's a speech therapist and an oh my gosh, I can't speak. Okay. She's a BCBA and she's a speech therapist. Her name is Barbara. I don't think that she's part. I was like, Mark Sundberg wrote the VB map. I'm like, why is Barbara's name in here? Anyways, I'm doing great today, guys. So Barbara, she was psychiatrist, or wow, I cannot.
Oh my god.
She is a PhD, BCBA doctorate, and a speech therapist, whatever a CCC speech therapist is, created the ESSI. So that makes a lot of sense to why it's even within the VB map, right? We had a speech therapist develop or even contribute, right? So anyways, so there's about 5 groups within the ESSI. There is group 1, which is simple and reduplicated syllables. So it targets vowels, diphthongs, consonants, P, B, M, N, H, and W. Then there's group 2, where it is focusing on 2-syllable combinations, where the targets are adding consonants K, G, T, D, F, Y, and NG. Then the group 3 is 3-syllable combinations. So group 4 is prosody, spoken phrases. So like saying like, no way, like the emphasis on like specific phrases. And then group 5 is prosody in other contexts. So it talks about like the pitch, the loudness, the duration. So we really focus on trying to increase the child's ability to kind of like vary their vocalizations as they get older, or like as they go through the ESSA. So the one thing here, it says like pitch would be echoes pitch variations of 2 lines of a familiar song, or like continuous like warble, which is saying like the fire truck. If a child's able to do that, then like it just helps with their speech progression.
Well, how does this, okay, now can you go to the barriers?
Trying to find, so there's text.
Because we talked about the barriers assessment for manding, and I mean in the VB map there's barrier sections for each of the verbal operants, and it's on a scale from 0 to 4. Like there's no problem or there's significant problems with it. So with that, echoics, there's a barriers assessment too. So this really lets us know like if they can repeat those, or if they're having trouble with the pitch, or you know, where are they?
And also, like, I don't know why I didn't even think about this before, but it talks about echolalia and that being something, right? Like a difficult thing. So I'll read what this basically says is a child's ability to echo words on command is one of the most important early measures of their potential for language development. That is because it's often easy to transfer the control of a spoken word from echoic to mand to tact to intraverbal. We'll talk about intraverbals later. By using transfer of stimulus control procedures. However, the inability to echo words presents a major barrier to future language development, and thus is often a key component to language intervention programs. However, echoic behavior can become too strong, or echolalia, and can become a barrier to language development. Delayed echolalia or pelalia and scripting, excessive use of out of context repeating previously heard words, is another common problem related to echoic behavior. These behaviors may actually be a form of self-stimulation involving verbal behavior that is automatically reinforcing. There are a way of potential causes of these problems, such as reinforcement and impaired intraverbal skills. So basically, it's saying that if you are able to like engage in echoics, you might have, it might be great and you might be good to go and you're just echoing, you know, I think we all do it too. We all engage in some sort of echolalia or echoics, not echolalia specifically, but, and we can talk a little bit more about what echolalia is in a second, but we all engage in echoics. We sing along to songs, right? Like we're echoing the songs, or, you know, if you hear a phrase on a TV show that you think it's funny, like, I don't know, sports things are funny to me sometimes. Like my husband watches a lot of football, and some of the, like, I don't know, I guess like a position is called a nickelback. And I had no idea that that was a position until recently. And I'm like, nickelback, it's funny. Like I'm quoting what I heard, me also thinking it's like Nickelback the band, but anyway.
I know, and you say that, and I just want to say, look at this photograph.
Yes, that's exactly where my mind is too. Thank you.
Echoics. Yeah.
But that's an echoic, right? Like, and then we become scripting, right? So scripting can then be with a, it's really funny. I have a kiddo that's in context scripting right now. It's hysterical. They like will use their scripts completely in context, and you know it's a script because the way that they're saying it is not how they would typically talk. So, but anyways, yes, talk about what echolalia is.
Question first of all, because I don't know if I have to pull up Google, because there's a new word or phrase, and I don't know if it's the same as echolalia. Is it the same as, and I'm gonna butcher this name, is it gestalt or is it gestalt? What's the G?
I'm messing that up constantly, and I like say that it's I mean, I think it's a therapy too, but that's where you're using your scripts in context.
Yeah, the gestalt language processing, style of language development where children learn language in chunks rather than individual words.
When did that come to be? Because I feel like that wasn't always a thing, but I've heard about it for years.
I heard about it most, like a lot more. I don't even think I've heard about it in Pennsylvania. I've been hearing about it a lot here. Like this is what they refer to rather than echolalia. So in GLP, children memorize phrases and then learn the meaning of the individual words through those phases. So, okay, here are some characteristics of GLP. Delayed echolalia. So repeating the phrases, scripting. I mean, if your client has a favorite TV show or movie that they're watching, they'll memorize phrases from those things and repeat them. And just like you said, using them in context, which is great.
So I am making like crazy light bulb moments right now over here. Okay. So echolalia is your immediate echo. Okay. So like I ask you a question. So let's pretend this is what it is right now. Okay. So ask me a question.
What's your favorite color?
What's your favorite color?
Okay.
So that
would be the echolalia.
That's echolalia, right? Whereas Gestalt,
instead of answering the question.
right. Or like even saying anything, right? Like you're completely, so like I could have just said like, instead of answering the question, right? And so that is echolalia. Whereas Gestalt, whatever language processing is using scripts that they have previously learned in context or to develop language. Boom.
So then that's what you're dealing with right now is the GLP, which is really interesting because it's like they're building their vocabulary, but it's not necessarily their own words or thoughts.
Right. But like that's, I mean, I don't know when did GLP come around, because now I have to look that up. When I mean, I have been seeing it everywhere and I think it's pretty cool.
Really? I don't know, but there's a lot.
Apparently it was named and described by linguist Ann Peters in 1983. So it's been around for quite some time, but I think people just haven't really talked about it. And so if you're listening, I guarantee you've seen at least one video about this type of processing. Like, I guarantee it. All on social media, there's on the reels, there's on TikTok, it's everywhere. I just never put two and two together.
I know it's one of those things where it's like I've seen it before, but didn't know there was an actual name for it.
Well, we learn something new every day.
Yeah.
Literally learn.
Yeah, and like another thing that it lists is that listening to media. So like those kiddos who are pausing and rewinding certain parts of like a song or a video, that's part of it. That's part of GLP. So that could be part of echolalia in a sense.
And then we also look at that as their stimming, right? So like our world, we would look at that as like, okay, child is stimming right now. How do we would normally, I mean, if it's not, I will say, I believe Anne and I are both on the same page with this. If it's not impeding on the child's learning, don't take away the stim.
Please don't. There are bigger and better things to do with your life. And it could be a coping thing. It could be a coping thing. You don't know how much trauma you could accidentally cause by blocking that and by trying to decrease it. So don't.
Just don't. Like
if it's annoying to you, you need to figure out the own function of your behavior. That's a you problem, not a them problem.
But I mean, it's so true. Like
it is
really
like teachers are like, oh, it's so annoying when they walk back and forth. It's like, are they paying attention? Is it helping them participate? Is it helping them process? Okay, you need to figure out how to reshape your own behavior then around it, because traditional classrooms they just don't exist anymore.
No. And
we have to adjust.
I get it. Like music helps our kiddos and they need that to help with coping too. And like a lot of times, they rewind, like Anne was just saying, to specific parts of a video or like a song or something to hear on repeat. That's them trying to cope with whatever they're feeling, whatever.
And guess what? We do that too. Do you have a favorite show that you watch on repeat?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. I go through a couple shows, but yeah.
So like you have like a rotating, like I'm binge watching Friends. I'm almost done. But like The Office, we used to have just on background. And songs, like if I have a favorite artist and they come out with a new album, that's all I'm listening to for months. It's all I'm listening to.
Yeah. I mean, right now, my niche, or I don't know if I'm using the word right, I guess like my interest right now would be listening to country music. Like I've really dived into all country music type stuff.
No, not you too.
Living in the South, it's happened.
No,
it is what it is. We've been down here for 2 years, actually, officially, like 100% 2 years now. So I don't know what to tell you.
Wow.
Yeah. So country music is like my thing right now. And I'm like, yes, like this is great. That helps me cope with like life, right? I have to also, I will also say like my coping skill, if I really have to focus heavily on one specific one, is going to be listening to like my 90s 2000s music.
Mm.
Like that is my jam. I did a 20-minute pop punk ride today. Ooh, that was fun.
Ooh,
that was a
that
good
sounds
one.
nice.
It was a good one. Had some great like music on there, but like that's like that helps me cope, right? So going back to like echoics and coping, so like a child may engage in their own echoic repertoire or like their own echoics or just the GLP. I'm not going to even try to say the G word again.
I know, the GLP.
GLP. Because they're trying to cope and they're trying to relate to other people. They see people having conversations. They see you being able to like fully communicate and have social interactions. They want to put that in too, and they can't. So what are they going to do?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I saw this video that I'm going to like just pull from right now. I'm going to put that into conversation. It's like us quoting things. If you think about it, how many friends quotes do you say?
Oh, I mean, I can't quote movies or TV shows unless it's Finding Nemo. Unless it's, listen, I don't know, but like my husband does it all the time, and he's like, "What's that one from?" And I'm like, "I don't know." Like,
my husband does the same thing, but I will say my favorite go-to is SpongeBob. Just like the old episodes, like I will quote it with my technicians. I'll like, I like to have fun when I work. And so actually a mom and I were just quoting SpongeBob the other day.
The things you thought you'd never say.
Right? Like things
while you're working.
What's that?
While you're working.
Literally, like
quote SpongeBob while you're working.
It was, I forget what we were even talking about, but it was related to the client. And then we were like, oh, it's like the episode when like, Patrick is this. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't right now. Because mom's our age. Like, so she's like, talking to me about like all that type of stuff. And it's pairing. But anyways, so it's like, that's what GLP is. Like we're pulling from old things to kind of contribute to a conversation. So we all kind of do it in a sense, right? Like if you think about it. Let's see. So yeah, I believe that echoics are super important to make sure that we're working through because once again, it helps with our tacting, which is an episode we talked about before. The more likely that you're to see it in our, I guess, like our naturalistic environment. Even when you're tacting, like we said, use your tacting within your natural environment because you're more likely to see it happen in other ways. I don't know. What else do we have to talk about echoics? I guess it would be the prompting. Yeah,
I guess it would be, and I guess the prompting would be similar to how you would prompt a tact. So it would just be, I guess it all depends on. But if you're doing echoics, then it means that your client probably doesn't have a lot of verbal behavior because you're just starting out. Or so you might want to take those approximations or do like partial vocal prompting, or you might have to prompt the entire echoic for them to say it. I think a lot of shaping can come into play with echoics. Where are you?
My thought process, and I know that we had a whole episode about this because we had a whole conversation in regards to our AAC usage, right? I'm about to pull up the AAC visualized book because can you do
echoics on an AAC?
Yes. I don't know
because isn't the whole point of echoics for them to repeat what you're speaking with their own mouth?
Yes. But like, okay, hold on, let's see.
I mean, it's a good question because I know for me, when I ever did all the times that I've done echoic in a program, it was the expectation for the client to repeat me with their mouth, not with a device or with PECs. Like I've never made a PECs that says "we" on it. Like, what would that even look like? Because all of those pictures, like you have to have the picture and the word. So what would that even look like?
That's why I'm thinking that it wouldn't even necessarily be echoics. It would just be tacting and manding. Like you and your interverbals, I mean, we'll talk about that later, but you can use those on an AAC device.
Yes. Yeah.
But like you can't use, I don't think echoics would be necessarily, the only way I would say echoics would be a thing is if you were pressing on their device, like bear, for example, and then but that's a model prompt.
I know. Yeah, I think we need to consult Janae again on this.
I need a speech therapist. I need Janae. I need everyone.
Yeah, because then like I had a thought and now it's gone, and I don't know if it's gonna come back.
But like, I mean, you're not even using those like syntaxes, because I mean, even saying like the core list words here, like your core words are going to be like social pronouns, questions, helping.
Well, and even like you said with like the pitch, if you're saying like no way, like an AAC device is not going to do that for you. Pictures, like the textbook, is not going to do that for you. It's not. It doesn't translate.
Agreed. So I think at the end of the day, the answer is going to be no. You cannot use echoics with an AAC device.
If you're listening to this, please email us if you have input, because that would be great. That would be something new for us.
Yeah, I mean, we're clearly always open to learning new things. We learn something new every episode. So thanks to Google and plenty of literature.
Google AI, artificial intelligence, woot woot.
AI is taking over the world.
It really is.
But that's a whole other thing. Anyways, let's see if it says contents. I don't see anything in regards to, I do see the GLP in here.
Okay.
30,
so that might have something.
35. It just talks about like understanding it and how it relates to the AAC device.
Well, and I can see that too. Like I've definitely had clients and students engage in, would it be echolalia on their devices if they're just repetitively? No, it wouldn't be echolalia. It would be more of like a stim, where they're just like pushing something over and over and over again, and they're not manding for it. It's just like, there's some sort of automatic reinforcement where they like what it sounds like, or maybe I don't know. I've seen that, and again, I've been told by various speech therapists to not block that, because that's kind of like babbling. Like they're engaging in babbling, like 12-month-old, like at that developmental level of like, they're just like, they're babbling and they're figuring out like, what is the sound? But that's, I don't know if that's like the extent to GLP on an AAC device.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, but I don't know. I think that's definitely something that we need to dive more research into and see if there's anything, like you want to make a note somewhere, Anne, that we look further into it or ask. I
think if we had someone on who like specializes in AAC devices, that would be really cool.
Yeah. I think that would be awesome if we can get someone on like that. So if any of you are listening and you're a speech therapist that specializes in AAC device, please reach out to us, because we would love to hear anything that you have to say in regards to AAC devices and how people can better navigate them, besides this book that I have. And besides, like, obviously our like wonderful speech therapists that we collaborate with, and trying to really develop all of that stuff with our families. But anywho's, Anne, would you like to wrap it up?
Erica, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
And there's an echoic.
ABA Generalized, the podcast, is not providing professional advice. Please seek a professional in your area for specific advice and support.